You're listening to the Convenience Marketing Group podcast, a new podcast for leaders of convenience stores, convenience distributors, and convenience suppliers who want to differentiate their companies to grow sales and margins. I'm your host, Joan Zacic, along with the president of the Convenience Marketing Group, Tim Lazor. Welcome to our podcast. It's great to have you in the studio here today, Tim.
Joan, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you've got a lot of years of experience in this field, so we're really looking forward to seeing what nuggets of wisdom you can reveal for us today.
Yeah, I love the convenience industry, whether it's for retailers, whether it's distributors, or even manufacturers and suppliers in this space. Been in the industry a long time, and I love it, and am looking forward to talking about marketing and differentiation in this space. So, let's get started.
Let's just start with why. We know you love it, but why create a marketing podcast for the convenience industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, and to answer that question, I've got to tell you a story.
Okay.
So, I've gone to the NACS, the National Association of Convenience Store show, for years and years and years. But what I've noticed over the last 2 years is there's been a great deal of disgruntled retailers, a lot of agitation among the natives.
Really?
Yeah, especially going to the educational sessions that happen during the show. And what I've noticed was, with the questions and the agitation and the competitive pressure that's on especially retailers, but also suppliers, is they're looking for the next big answer, the next what I call magical product. Give me that product that's a high margin product that I can just slot it into my store and live to die another day, live to fight another day, right? And what's happening is sometimes those products aren't necessarily coming or in the pipeline. So what you have is a situation where the retailers are demanding that next magical product with the high margin. It's easy to sell. I don't have to do anything except put it into my store. And when that product doesn't come, you have conflict and agitation. And that seems to be what's happening in the whole convenience store space right now. The other thing that's happening is all this competitive pressure that's starting to happen amongst retailers. So, you have not only the mergers and the acquisitions on the retail side going on, but you also have from the distributor side a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Just a lot of activity that's going on. You have things like Amazon Go stores. You have Dollar General Express stores getting into the convenience store space. All of this is happening at like the worst possible time for convenience in the convenience industry. So as I saw all that agitation and all that competitive pressure, it occurred to me that there was a real need for a space and a place in this world for a podcast like this one to start to understand and educate the category about what they can do differently to compete better in the future. So looking at this situation, it seemed to me that there was a real opportunity to create a podcast for the leaders of this industry to come and learn and share and get better and more competitive. So that's the why, why I've decided to do this podcast.
Okay, I see. I have to wonder, what drives you nuts about the current state of marketing in the convenience industry? I can tell there must be some things, huh?
Well, yeah, there is. I mean, and I think that, the agitation, maybe I have a little bit of agitation here too, in terms of things that drive me nuts about the industry and about marketing in the industry. And again, maybe to start, I need to tell you a story. And just going back from the retail side, I spent about 10 years of my life working for an advertising agency in Pittsburgh, working on the Sheetz convenience store business. Now, at the time that I worked on it, Sheetz was a pretty good, mid-size 100-store retailer, maybe $300 million in sale. A good regional player. But what I recognized the opportunity back then was that Sheetz had just introduced their made-to-order food program. And it was solid. It was good as basic sub made-to-order program. But the opportunity that I recognized when I worked on the Sheetz business was this. And it's funny how history repeats itself or comes full circle. In this particular case, Sheetz with their made-to-order food program, was in a position to challenge fast feeders and quick-serve restaurants. Mm-hmm. And by what I mean by that is those restaurants and those fast feeders at that time, they had gotten a bit complacent, thinking there's no way a convenience store with their food could ever challenge us. So they got into a situation where they were somewhat complacent. My job, the opportunity, the marketing opportunity that I recognized back then was that the faster that we introduced new made-to-order products to a broader group of people, and the faster and the more nimble we were as marketers, the more share that we could start to gain, the more differentiation that we could create with the food program. So the other thing, and the retailers will understand this, is that food, when you have a food program, it's a high margin program. So when you're starting to sell food in the high margin, it solves a lot of other problems, meaning it takes the pressure off the Cokes and the smokes. It takes the pressure off of margin pressure on gasoline. And what it also allows you to do is hire really good people. It also allows you to open better stores and get more store openings and more locations. So it's a self-fulfilling kind of very positive prophecy that happens when you're starting to sell higher margin differentiated products inside your convenience store. So having said that, what drives me nuts about the current state? Well, some of the players like Sheetz and Wawa, which I did a little bit of work on as well when they introduced their gasoline down in Millsboro, Delaware, and some other work with other convenience store chains, is the players of today, the strong marketing players like a Sheetz and like a Wawa, they decided, 20, 30 years ago that they were going to start to find ways to differentiate their stores, their products, their programs, and things like that. And so they just started. And the reason that they're such powerhouses today was back then they decided they would differentiate their stores and their products within them. So there was a real proactive plan to do that. And what drives me nuts is those case histories have been proven and demonstrated to work within the convenience store industry, right? But that model has not been picked up, in my opinion, by enough people over the years. Like, this is something that anybody can do now if they want. And we were talking earlier on about one of my favorite Chinese proverbs and quotes, which was, what's the best time to plant a tree? And the answer to that is 30 years ago and today. And I think within the marketing space and the convenience industry, the best time to start to think about marketing and differentiating yourself and growing sales and margins, if you didn't do it 20 and 30 years ago, the best time to start doing that is today.
I see. And that would apply to distributors as well, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would. I mean, in the world of distribution, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions that have been taking place over the last couple of years. The one thing that there really are two things. A lot of the distributors like to compete from a marketing standpoint just on price. Mm-hmm. And that's a downward spiral for not only for the distributor, but also for the retailers that work with that distributor. Because when you compete on low price, what happens is you have to take services away from the retailer. You have to take it away. I mean, you just can't afford it because there's not margin in there. There's not room to. So you can give low prices, but at the same time, you have to take something of value off the table for a retailer. And a lot of times it's the very thing that they need, which is service, new ideas, creativity and innovation. And and a lot of these single store owners or, the retailers, if they have maybe 5 stores, whatever, they need that type of retail partner in their world. But if you're competing on low price as a big distributor, a lot of times you can't give that to them.
Well, what should convenience leaders expect from this marketing-focused podcast? For example, how often? Yeah,
the world that we're going to live in here with convenience, the whole convenience industry is really going to focus on ideas centered around marketing, ideas centered around differentiation, ideas centered around creating new value for your customers or your clients if you're a distributor or a manufacturer. And really what I want to do is I want to get into the weeds and because I think that this podcast, it's not for everybody. It's just for people in the world of the convenience industry. If you're looking for general marketing advice, this isn't the place for you. If you're looking for specific tactical ideas and marketing advice and ideas and approaches in the convenience category, then you might find a home here. But I wanted to say that, with this podcast, the way I would like leaders in the convenience industry to think about it is, it's an inch wide, but it's a mile deep, right? It's not broad marketing. It's very narrow. Just if you're a retailer, a distributor, or a manufacturer in the convenience store space, that's about as wide as our bandwidth is. But as far as the depth of this thing, I would really like to go deep in the weeds, because that's where I think we will always find, at least in my experience, the world of differentiation and creating value for your customers.
Well, Tim, along with that line of thinking, something you've talked to me in the past about. Explain what this is, the Convenience Store Marketing Manifesto.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And it grows out of the things in the industry that drive me completely crazy sometimes. And what I've decided to do is it's really just, let's consider it a small book. Mm-hmm. And it's a book of proclamations for the convenience store industry, things that you need to consider, whether you're a retailer or a distributor or a manufacturer. These are proclamations that you need to make to start to drive differentiation and creativity and change within your organization if you want to compete in the future. It's a very proactive look at really changing your attitude toward marketing, thinking differently about your customers, how you sell to them, how you create value for them. So the manifesto is maybe 20 to 25 proclamations that I would like marketing teams and management teams to make within these different sectors, to start to think and act differently, things that they can do proactively to change the trajectory of where a lot of them are on now. But it's very proactive versus being complacent.
And tell me a little more with some examples maybe about the thinking behind it, and also what this is going to be in regard to your vision for the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you think about Martin Luther and when he nailed his manifesto to the church door, that's exactly what this is for the convenience store space. And in further future podcasts, we can talk about maybe the 2025, and we can break them down and really drill down on them. But
Great.
One of the main ideology that I bring to the marketing, the convenience marketing manifesto is that my belief is that when you do marketing or advertising or marketing or advertising or digital campaigns, it's always tied directly to driving sales and margin. Mm-hmm. Those two things are not in different silos in the convenience store space. They're always linked at the hip. And one of the things that bugs me a little bit, and I go back to the NACS show and some of the educational sessions, is I sometimes think that as we listen to some of these sessions, that especially from the marketing standpoint, that we have some people that are, I'll venture to even call it embarrassed to want to sell and to market and to have new customers and new sales and new margins driven within the retail space or even within the distribution space. And I'm the opposite of that. I believe that rather than be embarrassed by marketing and sales, I would say it loudly and proudly to people. That's the whole function of marketing, is to drive sales, traffic, margin, interest, and value all around your business. But that's just me, right? If that isn't an ideology for somebody, then for our company, they would not make a good client. But if they believe that their sales and their marketing are always linked, and they're willing and want to proudly market their company to drive new customers and sales growth, then we can certainly have a conversation around that, because that's what I believe. And I believe that because with all of my history with Sheetz and with Sled Distribution and with Wawa and some of these other players in the industry, that has worked historically because those are the fundamentals that I know work and have tried over and over and over again and have had success with. So it drives me crazy that those fundamentals are still out there, and they're available to everybody. But the convenience industry has used them less than I would like to see them use them. So that's kind of the purpose of the manifesto here is I want to make people deadly aware of what those proclamations are, why they should look at them, and if they believe in them, nail them to their own retail, or their distribution facility's door.
Well, I know that one of the things that you've talked about to accomplish that is differentiation. So could you talk a little bit about your approach to creating meaningful differentiation as it applies to the convenience industry?
Yeah, when I sit down with clients in the convenience store space, there's really maybe it's 4 things that we really look at, and the first one is, and this is just asking questions of as you start to do some diagnosis and discovery work with clients, is the first question is who are you serving? Who is your customer? Who do you want your customer, your future customer, to be? So we have to get a very clear picture of who that customer looks like. And once we define that, then the next thing we ask is, what are you doing for those customers to create value? What are you doing for them? And that can, be a whole range of things. And the other, once we answer that question, is what are we doing? What are we selling? What's the value? Then the question becomes, how are we delivering it? What are our processes? How do we interact with those people? How do we create value with them? So when you start with the who, that's your target audience. But then the what and the how really becomes that space where you start to innovate and get creative and create more value for those customers that you want to define and target as your customers. And then as far as, more differentiation, then the last, my favorite question in all of this discovery work with clients is the why. Why are you doing what you do for those people? And it's funny because a lot of times when you talk to clients, they don't know the why. They've never been asked this question before.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And it forces them to think a lot more deeply about their business. And the why, why you're doing what you're doing leads to the next, and maybe the final question here is, what's your higher purpose in being in business? And there's a great little book by Cynthia Montgomery. It's called, I think it's called The Strategist. It's a wonderful little book, and she does ask the question in that, if your business went away today, what would your clients and customers miss? I mean, what would the world miss about your business? What was the value that you were creating that they wouldn't have anymore? And what's sad about that question is sometimes the answer is nothing. They really wouldn't miss much. And again, that's where I come back to, is that's just completely unacceptable in the convenience store industry. There should be a very strong why. There should be a stronger, higher purpose for why you do what you do in business. And what that really comes down to, I just thought about it right now, was that's your own personal manifesto in the convenience store space. I know why I wrote the convenience manifesto. What I'm trying to find out through that is, what's your manifesto, Mr. or Ms. convenience store owner or distributor? What's your why? And I think once we find those two whys together, why what I'm doing, but what your why is, once we find that, we find some real estate where you can create differentiation and value, and then we can communicate that loudly and proudly. And I think by doing that, that's the essence of your marketing differentiation. And
again, why is marketing differentiation so important in the CI category?
Well, in the convenience industry category, I mean, differentiation is important because what you're trying to uncover is your uniqueness, right? What makes you different than your competitors in the world. And you're also then trying to create that new value for your customers. And ultimately, by doing that, you're trying to create a destination of your store, of your distributorship, of the product. If you're a convenience manufacturer or supplier, you're in there trying to, you want people to come to you because you're different, you're unique, and you create more value. But at the end of the day, by going through all that process of creating all that differentiation and all that value, it's not just an exercise, but the reason for it at the end of the day is so that you can charge more.
Aha.
And really, you're trying to create less substitutes in the world, right? Where you are the only one that does what you do as a retailer, as a distributor, as a supplier. And again, once you start to do that and start along that process, you're creating so much value in the world that you are the only answer to the question, where can I get X, whatever X is? And by doing that, you're able to charge more. It's, really basic marketing and economics combined. And it is a wonderful place to be if you can find it. And we help clients find that all the time. And it is a sweet spot to be in.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Can you give me an example at the retail level? Where are these points that a convenience leader can use marketing differentiation? Yeah,
just thinking back with my time working on the sheets business at the agency that I had worked at, was when I first got in there and saw that there was this opportunity in the whole world of food service. I was recommended back then to Louis Sheets that they look at two different products. One was what was called at that time a no-bake cookie. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know what that is. More of a regional type of a cookie, and it really is. It's a no-bake cookie, but it has a great shelf life, and it's a really good and unique and really inexpensive product to make. So with the right pricing, it has high margin on it. And the other one was what we here in Western Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh area, call gobs. Some places
say it again. It's gobs.
It's a gob. Yeah, it's a gob. But in Philadelphia, in that area, it would be called a whoopie pie.
Like that, they really are very different.
They are different, and the fight will continue as to what we should call it. But that was another product that I had recommended to Sheets at that time, was for them to create their own brand of a gob. And they did. Louis was smart and introduced and tested those products. And 27 years later, those two products are still within the Sheets stores. That was, again, when you look at differentiation, a lot of times you have to go an inch wide and a mile deep. Those are two very regional, very unique, very wonderful products. And sometimes they're just laying right at your feet, and you just have to kind of look down and get on one knee and pick them off the ground and implement them. What I find about differentiation a lot of times is, from a marketing standpoint, I think sometimes we make it way, way too hard when the answer is maybe either right in front of us, or two, it's within the mind of the customer. If we would just ask them some questions, some really honest questions about what they want and need in this world, and just take the time to be quiet and listen to the answers and see if they provide some insights. We as marketers, I think sometimes try to be too clever in marketing and coming up with solutions, when a lot of times the answer is a lot simpler where you can find it.
A unique approach, simplicity, but unique. So where can folks in the convenience industry learn more or contact you?
Well, one thing I wanted to talk about before we get to that was, a lot of times you'll hear with industries in the convenience store spaces, how do I start? Tim, this is all good, finding differentiation, creating value, but where do I begin? Where do I start? And a lot of times what I'll tell them, and my process starts like this. There's really 5 areas that you can start. The first one is at your store, at your real estate, and as we call it in the industry, if you're a retailer, at your dirt, right? Or if you're a distributor, you start at your distributorship. The other place you can start is in your products that are in your store, in your distributorship, whatever. So that's the second place you can start to differentiate and create value. The third place is really in your people. And you would be surprised at how smart and innovative and chomping at the bit a lot of the people in your organization are, and how many ideas they can bring to the table about how to create new value for people. So that's the third place. If one is the store, the distributorship, the products, there's place for differentiation and creating value there. The third place is your people, which again, like customers, you just have to ask. And the two other remaining places are the services that you either currently provide or that you can create within your organization. And the last one is knowledge. And I love this one because what I'm taking is the model of a professional service firm where what they sell, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a good CPA, whether it's a marketing firm or whatever, there's intellectual property in the people, right? They say that the inventory of the company goes down the elevator every night. It leaves, right? Goes out the door. Why can't the convenience industry start to think about their people that way? And I'll give you a retail example, just as one example. So here in Pittsburgh, and across the country, there's REI retail, the retail stores. That's the outdoor outfitters, right? Sell the same products in the same locations all across the country, whether it's, winter coats, hiking boots, whatever it is. In Pittsburgh, at their REI, there was a guy there that worked, I think his name, they called him Mr. B. Now, Mr. B was, for the lack of a better word, a professional hiker.
Okay.
But this guy knew everything about hiking, like for the Appalachian Trail as an example. Like he could coach you on how to hike part of it, some of it, all of it. And he was extremely knowledgeable. He was extremely knowledgeable about all the products around that, hiking boots, tents, gear, everything that backpacks, anything that you could possibly use to be a outdoor hiker. He had more knowledge than anybody that you could possibly imagine. So he was bringing all of this knowledge, and what he was doing within that retail environment was he was compressing time of shopping. He was creating convenience for people. So I don't want to go in and try on 10 pairs of hiking boots. But the B-man would say, well, why don't you just try on these two? You probably find the product that you're looking for within those two, thus saving me a ton of time, right? Or or backpacks or whatever. And I use that as an example to say, if that retailer can take the knowledge that is in the B-man's head and translate it to a retail customer, what's to say that a convenience store owner or a distributor or a manufacturer, for that example, in the convenience store space, if they had some of those players that bring all of that situational knowledge and they can bring that to their world where one of their employees is able to wait on customers or clients or whatever and bring that knowledge to compress the time of purchasing, two things happen. It's one, it differentiates the store with knowledge. Two, most likely they're probably going to buy a higher margin item and they're going to buy it a lot faster than they would normally do or shop around because you trust the B-man to coach you and teach you. And why would you go anywhere else? And in telling that story in the retail space, the whole learning of that is there's only one place you can go to get the B-man. And at that time, it was REI. You couldn't get him anywhere else. So again, he was creating value for the retail customer in that store. So I just want in the convenience space for people to think about the fact that they might have a B-man within their organization. And if they do, they need to find and uncover him or her and bring them into the marketing mix to create value and differentiation.
Wow, that's really interesting thinking and a new way to look at employees as an investment too.
They really are, and we had talked briefly about the convenience marketing manifesto, and I devote a whole section in there about how much value and creativity and innovation that employees, and even if they have 50% of what you're looking for, a lot of times, if you look within your organization, you have a couple of those. It's been my experience anyhow, that you already have those employees. They might not be fully formed marketing people right now, but they want to do it and they have ideas and energy around it. And if you can tap into them and get them into the marketing and differentiation piece of your company, if you want to create it, you're going to be a real winner. And just saying that too is one of the things about the retail convenience space, and again, one of the problems that I think we've faced over time from a marketing standpoint is there's been this natural complacency that happens in the convenience store space. It's not to blame anybody, but in that world, in the convenience industry, especially in the retail industry, and that directly affects distributors, they're very operationally focused because they have to be. Meaning when that convenience store, if it's 24/7, you're constantly fighting battles every day, right? I mean, from deliveries, right, to customers, to the threat of being held up, at any, the convenience store sits on, 20, 40,000 gallons of gasoline. It's open 24/7. There's all kind of risk in the parking lot, people getting hurt, whatever. So you're constantly, the world is naturally operationally focused. The problem with that is your competitors, if they're taking the time to be marketing oriented, they're innovating, they're creating value, they're doing things that you're not doing. And as a result, what's happening there is what's happening in the industry right now, where the Amazon goes, the Dollar General Express stores, they're getting into the convenience store space mostly because it's easy. And this is one of the things that I saw at the NAC shows too, was people were constantly, complaining about this kind of situation with Amazon Go stores, Dollar General Express stores getting into this space. But my answer is, if I worked for them, why wouldn't they go after your business? Because you're not defending it. You're not innovating and creating value in marketing. So your turf is undefended. So as a result of all of that, it's low-hanging fruit for them until we as an industry start to say, we're going to do things differently. We're going to create and innovate and market differently to push back on this competitive threat so that we become the destination. We create more value than they do. And the place to start doing that, really, in my mind, is just having that belief and that ideology that you can do it.
That you can. Yeah. And if folks want to reach out, learn more, contact you.
Yeah. They can certainly visit the website. It's conveniencemarketing.net. And once you're there, if anybody wanted to contact me, the office number here is 412-423-0044. If they need my cell number, it would be 412-400-3144. If they needed to email me, my personal email address would be Tim Lazor, and that's spelled TIMLAZ as in zebra, OR, at Comcast.net. They can reach me through the website as well. And also on the website, if they go to conveniencemarketing.net, there's a space there to schedule a meeting. So if they wanted to schedule a half-hour consultation just to kind of start the conversation and see if there might be some kind of fit or some area to work, we welcome those all the time.
Well, Tim, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and it's really been an education, too.
Yeah, thanks, Joan. I look forward to the future podcasts and appreciate your time.
Great.
Thanks, Joan.
My sincere apologies.